companies investing in Sub-Saharan Africa may benefit from a wealth of opportunities. Andrea Nono, Chief Executive Officer of MTU South Africa, regards these opportunities in a context characterized by population growth, urbanization, scarcity of natural resources, and increasing energy demand. Her company's leadership model helps leaders to address these challenges by providing a strategic direction, delivering results, and sustaining relationships.
So, I'm located in South Africa since 2014, looking after over 30 countries with my team, Sub-Saharan Africa. So while we're talking about success factors in South Africa, let's talk a little bit more of Southern Africa to broaden the spectrum there. All right, the one big thing, the fundamental driver of a lot of mega trends is actually the population growth. And this is not specifically for Africa. However, this is where we're going to see one of the biggest growths in terms of population. Urbanization is a mega trend. I picked another one that I find very relevant for Africa, which is the scarcity of natural resources. And as an enterprise, again, we need to think differently. So how can we do with less more, starting from energy? So what kind of innovations do we bring forward to actually use less resources to have a bigger outcome? So it's real. The mega trends are there. And why I picked specifically the scarcity of raw materials is because I think the relevance of Africa is actually rising because of that. Because this continent has so much resources. And if there is an opportunity for the future, I think it's really there to grab it, and also for international companies to acknowledge that. So another one that is very important for companies is electricity, energy. So another mega trend is really the increasing demand of energy. So talking about environment, I would like to introduce the Rolls-Royce leadership model. It has a part in it where obviously environment has an important part, so that's why I started with it. So this model comes from Pendleton and Cowell. It's called the primary color model, as you can see with the primary colors. And if you look at the upper part, the strategic domain, then we have the interpersonal domain and operational domain. So there are three major domains that model looks at. And you could say, well, it's the head with the strategic, the heart with the interpersonal, and the operational is the hand. And while I talked about the environment, this is really where, if you look at the strategic domain, you really need to understand in what kind of environment your company is dealing with. Because this is where you're setting not just the vision, but also the purpose for your company and what do you want to achieve as an enterprise. So looking very closely at that, it's around what kind of meaning and mandate you have within that environment that your company needs to deal in. So it's important to understand the external, the environment, to understand the demand that is pushed onto the enterprise from outside, but also, on the other hand, to understand what opportunities do I have. Adjacent to the strategic domain, you see on the one hand side the creating alignment, and on the other, planning and organizing. Looking at creating alignment, this is where the head meets the heart, or you can say the rational meets the passion, where it's really around bringing meaningfulness to the whole strategic thoughts that you put into the purpose of the company. So the planning and organizing, this is more where the head meets the hand to really look at deadlines, to look at keeping the company at track. And keep that word deadline in mind, because from a cultural perspective, we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. Coming to the delivering results in the operational domain, this is really where the work needs to work through to completion. This is where I like to say, the rubber hits the road, where things really happen. So you can have the greatest thoughts, but if you're never implementing, we're not going anywhere. So being part of an important part of the leadership. Looking at teamwork, very important. It's really where the magnitude or the sum of everything is more than the individual. Bringing it together when you talk about leadership, you can lead yourself, that's the first important part, but more important is how do you get people together to work and bring something to a bigger scale. Then building, sustaining relationships, interpersonal, that will also be one of the important topics I want to discuss a little further in regards to a cultural perspective. This is really, you can say it in one phrase, is how does it feel to work for that company you're in? How are the relationships being built? How important are they? Looking at the leadership model, I think this is actually bringing it together. If I would only look at delivering results, we wouldn't get as a company anywhere. So where I started when I came to South Africa was really looking at, okay, what is our purpose as a company there in I mean, we can look worldwide, what does Rolls-Royce Power System do, but what do we do specifically in this context, in that environment? So looking at the strategy that we have and really putting out the vision for the company. So I think the first step that I felt very important to gain that leadership was creating alignment to stay with the wording. So people actually feel that they are part of a group and that they do feel commitment and want to follow because they feel this is the right direction. And it's, let's say, that combining the head with the heart to actually feel the passion for following that. Because then coming to the plans how to deliver on it, you do have the commitment, so people follow you, rather than that you need to push a plan onto them with deadlines, etc., but they are not convinced that this actually works. So I spend a lot of time in aligning and getting people on board to the common strategy, to the common, let's say, outlook. Yeah. This is where I felt I spent quite a bit of time to make it a success.